All right, how's it going, guys? My name is Mark Van Ells. I want to thank you so much for watching today. I'm really excited for what we have in store for the next, several minutes. We're going to be talking about key performance indicators used by businesses and some of their impact with data analytics. So basically, we're going to be talking about how key performance indicators are generated, some of the components of them, some of the uses they have, some of their limitations, and some of the users that they're intended, to serve. And then we're also going to talk about, when you're communicating the key performance indicators to different users, you kind of have to change some of the visualization strategies and how you're communicating that raw info so it's understandable and digestible to the respective users of that data. So first, we'll start to understand performance metrics. These are sort of what companies use to measure performance, and you compare it to a baseline to see how you're doing. And when we're talking about key performance indicators, they are a specific type of performance metric, and they're the ones that a company deems most useful for their strategy and decision making. So it has the most influence on those aspects, whereas other performance metrics are not going to be quite as heavy on the decision making and affecting strategy in those sorts of ways. So different companies will have different key performance indicators based on what their specific industry is to measure performance. Different firms are going to have different key numbers that are important to them, and specific targets they have to meet that measure their success. So everyone kind of measures their performance differently. So it's really important to understand that key performance indicators are not the same across all companies, and they vary very much depending on industry and a lot of other factors. So a lot of times when we're creating these key performance indicators, the raw data that's being used to create these metrics is coming out of our accounting systems. So it's important to consider how often the data in our accounting systems is being updated. If we're having key performance indicators that are being generated from data that's maybe 4 months old, that might not be very important and be giving us an accurate reading and measurement of where we are, in terms of reaching our strategic goal. So we want to see, how often our data is updated and making sure we're using the most up-to-date data available if possible. So when we're first working to develop, our key performance metrics, sometimes it can be really overwhelming, understanding which ones are the most important and which ones are the key performance indicators versus performance metrics. So something we have to help us out with that is called the balanced scorecard. And this sort of helps turn our goals into actions by identifying those most important metrics that we should be focusing on to help determine our strategy. So on our balanced scorecard, there's going to be 4 different components. We have financial, customer, internal processes, and organizational capacity. And all 4 of these should directly relate to our strategy of the organization. And then we also have to see how these interact with each other. You will recall that this balanced scorecard was something that was used in a previous accounting information system class in our undergraduate program. So for each of those 4 components I just spoke about, we have objectives, measures, targets, and initiatives to go ahead and measure them. So our objective should be aligned with our strategic goals of the organization, and then our measure is the KPI that kind of shows, how well we're doing in terms of meeting that objective. And then we have our target, which is, where we want to go compared to our measure. And then our initiatives is kind of our strategic goals and our actions to take us from our measure to our target so we can reach that target successfully in terms of accomplishing our strategic goals within the organization. So when we're talking about, what makes up an effective key performance indicator, we want to make sure that when what we're measuring is really providing us with, evidence of this progression towards a goal from where we are to where we want to be. And we're using kind of that to improve our decision making. So if we're really falling short of our target, we need to change up maybe, some of our operations, or maybe it hints that we're not performing something as effectively as we could or as efficiently, or the quality of our product isn't as good, and that's causing issues. So they can really provide insight to a lot of different operational aspects depending on what we're looking for. So if we're looking for key performance indicators for financial performance, we might be looking at net profit or gross profit, return on capital, some of those things. And then there's also key performance indicators for marketing, which is going to be our share of the market, brand equity, how we're performing in search engine rankings, those sort of things. And then we have operational, which is our return on innovation, like the project cost variance, earned value metrics. Then we have employee performance KPIs, which is, like the human capital value added, revenue per employee, employee satisfaction, employee turnover, And then we also have, environmental and sustainability KPIs. So, what kind of footprint are we leaving on the environment with respect to carbon usage or water usage, energy consumption, all these sort of things. And if we're not tracking these, then we really have no idea how we're doing, and our strategy only becomes symbolic, and we're not really aligning our strategy with our key performance indicators. So these constant measurements of our key performance indicators serve as reminders of how we're doing in progressing towards our strategy. So one of the most effective ways to communicate these results is through these data visualizations, and the most common is called a digital dashboard. This is sort of an interactive report that displays the most important metrics and kind of helps understand how the company is performing, and depending, it may be appropriate for internal or external use. And value is maximized when the metrics that are shown can be really effective for decision making and can be turned into tangible actions and initiatives. So once we've gone ahead and calculated our different key performance indicators that will determine based off our industry and what's relevant for measuring our own benchmarks, then it comes time to communicate the results to different users. So sometimes we'll have internal users, and sometimes we're going to have external users. So when you're releasing a 10K, you're releasing some of these key performance indicators to investors in the public so they can use that for decision making. Likewise, there's going to be certain key performance indicators that we only release to management and to the board of directors, because that's more internal information, and if we were to release that, it might affect our competitive advantage or something along those lines. So after all the results have been communicated, you kind of step into this analysis phase where you're really taking a look and understanding, what are we doing with these? So maybe which metrics are we looking at the most? Which ones really are helping us drive our operational vision and strategy? Because if there's some that we're really using for heavy decision making, maybe we can even delve further into those, segment them further, and create more value. Likewise, we want to see maybe some of these indicators aren't providing as much value as we thought they were, or the information they're displaying is a little bit lagging behind. And it's really important to digest this and use it, so then when we're making future dashboards to communicate these results, we can always be improving on what we're measuring and improve our measures and our understanding of them. That way we're not wasting time coming up with these measures that really aren't providing us that much use, because a lot of times that can happen, and then you end up kind of losing your strategic goal, and you're getting caught up in these small, minute indicators that really are not really providing you the value that you want. So being able to sit back and analyze them is something that's really important when you're evaluating these. And lastly, I just want to thank you guys for taking the time to learn a little bit about key performance indicators with me. We really have just kind of scraped the surface with this, and there's so much more to go. The balanced scorecard is just one form of this, data visualization, but there's all sorts of different templates that you can use to create a digital dashboard to express and communicate your findings in regards to KPIs. So before you start, using the balanced scorecard or any other method, really think about what your needs are, and who you're communicating these results to, and how they're going to use them, and what's going to be the easiest way for them to understand it and really create value with those. So once again, thank you so much, and I hope you enjoyed my presentation.